Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's podcast. I'm H.A. Conrad, here as always with my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Good day, AJ.
Good day, good day. So we are about to embark on another sort of watching adventure, or we have already embarked, I guess. And we're going to be talking about the first couple episodes of Revival, which is on SYFY or SYFY, as I love to call it. And this is, we'll I think it's an ep 8 episode season, and we'll just kind of start out with the first two and then take it from there. But before we get to that, just a tiny news tidbit. Everything is still all 28 years later, and they're doing pretty well at the box office, right, Stuart?
Yeah, I was, just cruising Box Office Mojo, and it looks like they were up to 70 million plus worldwide. As we remember, the movie cost 60 to make, so they have hopefully started to recoup, and that will help make the third movie more of a sure thing, which they were still kind of up in the air about the financing.
Yeah, and I mean, they're like apparently need about after the seventh day, they need around 5 million to be the highest grossing film in the franchise. But that seems like I don't want to like what was the I mean, I don't know. That seems kind of
Low?
like a different bar than other things. But anyway, um but still, it's pretty it's not just performing well in like the US box office, but worldwide box office is pretty good. So we'll have to see how this continues, but I feel like there's a lot of support right now for this franchise to continue. So hopefully they get all the backing they were hoping for. But and then in other news, some we got some new show coming to us, which I think I'm excited to see anyway.
Yeah, and this, I don't think I've seen this anywhere except on Instagram, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
weird.
I saw it too.
And
Wonder
it's
why.
Greg Nicotero dropping the release date for Daryl Dixon season 3, and it's just a pile of prosthetic zombie heads, and he's saying, "I'm in Madrid, and season 3 is coming September 7."
Yep.
I don't also understand. Granted, like they've been showing their hand that it's going to be set in Spain, but we left the show in the UK, so I don't know why they keep doing this. It feels like mildly spoilery in a way that isn't necessary.
Yeah. It does. It's kind of strange. And even there's like a Deadline article on this too, and it's and the immediate the lead in is that he's heading to Spain, So and there is a teaser that they did that came out maybe a little bit after this. So there is a teaser for it.
Okay.
Um, but it doesn't show you all that much. So anyway, I'm excited to see it. Still Daryl and Carol, so that's fun. And we'll obviously be talking about that once this comes out.
Yeah, with the delay that we've incurred on ourselves and not watching Dead City yet, I feel like these could be bouncing up off of each other
It could,
in our viewing timeline. But
well,
that's awesome. That feels like, was Daryl Dixon on this year? Was it on in 2025 or no?
yeah,
It feels
no,
like it just ended.
it feels like it just ended. Maybe it was like I thought it was fall of last year, but I could be wrong.
Maybe.
But our time space continuum is always messed up, so
That's true.
it's all good. Um, so I'm definitely looking forward to that, and we'll have to see how they make it into Spain. But that's about it, other than a lot of 28 days later, 28 years later, reviews and things like that. So I'm sure the news cycle will be including more stuff, I think, about this and other things in the next round. But if without further ado, let's get into it and talk about Revival. And I have to say, just as a sneak preview, I was really enjoying watching this. So I'm excited to see everything else that comes after.
Yeah.
How was your initial take?
I was really happy with the humor in
Yes,
it. I think
and
that
that's
that
good.
caught me off guard and was like a real welcome addition.
Yeah. So Revival is it premiered not too long ago.
June 12th. Yeah.
Yep, on the Sci-Fi channel. And you can, what I chose to do, I bought the season on Apple, so apparently I get more access a little bit, slightly more quickly, but not much more quickly.
Yeah, while I'm watching it on Peacock, on that streaming platform, and I only have access to two of the episodes that have aired so far. But luckily, we're talking about those two today.
Yeah. And just, I would say um that, we talked a lot about the teasers going into this. And I was pretty excited to see some of these cast members. I do think that the cast is very strong, especially a few members of the cast. But this show features in the main role is as Dana Cypress, Melanie Scrofano, and then I also have been really enjoying the performance of Andy McQueen, who plays Ibrahim Ramin, who's the like the CDC expert in
Love
this.
interest, CDC love interest.
Their scenes are kind of amazing together.
Yeah, they've got, I don't know how they've dialed in the awkwardness to this like nth degree, but it is very, it's a lot.
It is, but they also have chemistry, which is really, it's like they do really well, and it's kind of awesome. The other one of the other two, to me, the two main cast members here are David James Elliott, who plays the Dana's father, the sheriff Wayne Cypress, and then the youngest sister of Dana is played by is it Romy
Yeah,
Welton?
yeah.
And she goes by M, but her real name is Martha. And then there's a bunch of other kind of other casting characters, but these are the kind of four main people. There's also a little kid that plays the Cooper, who is Dana's son, and and he's actually a pretty good actor too. And then
They're
there's
not giving him so much to do
they're not
yet.
giving him much yet, but he's all right.
Yeah, he's believable in what
Yeah,
he's being asked to do.
he's
What did you
believable.
think of David James Elliott? Did you recognize him as he's doing his turn as the sheriff?
He seems very familiar to me, but he feels like that kind of a character.
Yeah, he has one of those faces and to an
He's
extent, but
Jag.
he is also yeah, he was the guy from Jag, which was a
Yeah,
I feel like it was long running.
yeah,
It was kind of like an NCIS sort of analog show for a long
yeah.
time.
I will say, and this maybe the age difference between him and Dana don't feel that far, and it's sort of believable, but they seem a little too close in age to be father-daughter. They're not. They're like
Uh,
totally believable, but that was one part that I was like, I'm not sure about that. But
yeah, oh, I think they might have Melanie Scrofano playing younger than she is in real life because she's like 43 and he was what is he
he's
like?
in his 60s. I mean, it's believable. It's valid. Like
Yeah.
he could have had, that's fine. It kind of like hit me, but he does play a really good dad figure, and their chemistry is great. Their interactions are hilarious.
If I
Um,
can launch in with one minor quibble this early, their interactions, they're supposed to be stressful, but it's kind of annoying. It's like a lot of bickering when they're together. And that's the first scene that they have together. I think it's every scene they're in together, they are arguing. And
well,
it gets, like when M is also introduced, it exponentially goes goes more. So it feels like a lot. They've written in a lot of bickering scenes, and I don't know how many people are like into watching people argue.
um, so I view their quibbling as something else, and I feel like they're building it to something else. And to me, it's to not deal with something else, which I mean they talk about.
Sure.
And I don't feel like it's over the top. I think it's just their normal, like his to me his temperature is always set on like 11.
Yeah.
And it's not just with her. It's like the whole um the like in the station, all the other officers have the same like take on him, and the humor, but also the like level of like they're all comfortable with each other. It's a small town, but they totally have his number, and so I wasn't as bothered by that, but I hear what you say. I can see
Yeah.
why that could annoy you.
It's getting a little tiresome in the first two episodes. And you say it's a small town, but how many cops does this town have?
Well,
I feel like
that was going
there's,
to be my next question because it's like, is this like a whole region? Like, what's going on? Because it is a lot,
and
right?
they're all on duty all the time.
Yeah.
Even when she's not working, I mean, that's because her dad's the sheriff and she's a cop too, but she's getting like called out to do stuff when she's clearly out on a date, second, one of a couple scenes into the show.
Well, I think he's doing that just because he can, and that's his deal. Like he always calls on her. So I think that's part of their
Yeah, it could
dynamic
be.
and maybe part of their stress. So that she gets called out to do all the things, and he's doing it semi-deliberately. It's a
Uh,
little aggressive.
I mean, we've talked about those four cast members who are the central cast, but then like we were just saying, like there's so many cops, but they all seem to be played by. There's not a lot of background actors going on here.
Nope.
I mean, there are because there are some scenes with a lot of people in them, but like I can think of three or four of these, maybe five of these cops who have lines and are clearly members of this ensemble too. So the show feels like they've got a lot of people. They got a lot of characters, and that's just the cops, not even starting to get into the townspeople. Like there's a lot of people in this show. That makes the production value feel pretty high, and I think that is a through line so far in these first two episodes. It feels like they're not skimping on anything.
They set this town up where it's like it's definitely there's a lot of rural things going on. There's lots of farmers, but then they also have the little town like I want to say the little town set kind of. So it has that vibe. It has like, and I do think the humor and some of the things they're playing with and the tropes that they play with are pretty funny. So like the cops and the donut thing was really funny because she's always eating donuts. At least she has been in these first two episodes.
Yeah, not so
And
sure. I believe that she has a donut addiction.
yeah, she looks pretty good.
She,
And but there's like they play up some of that stuff. And it's interesting because it's even with the opening scene, I wasn't sure where they were going with this, and it like walks the line of camp, but it's not camp. And it's definitely got this like procedural drama thing attached to it with the murder mystery thing, but also the zombie mystery thing. So I mean, really, in the first sort of opener, it's like you're kind of right into the middle of it with the funeral home, right?
and this
But
is like the campiest part of the
yeah,
show.
and so I was sort of like not sure where it was going just because of them setting the table in this way,
Hmm.
and even the way like the um is he a funeral director? Is he what is he
I think
exactly?
he might be a coroner because he's also at the police station later, so that makes it feel like a coroner.
And even his performance is very camp, and even with the reporter that they're like, talking about, she's like, I'm, doing a like what a series on unusual jobs, and he's like talking about cremation, and they get into all this stuff, and this is where this is literally the moment when all the dead come back to life, in a pretty dramatic fashion because there's a body being like cremated, and that doesn't go so well. So really, when this whole thing unfolded, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be this kind of show, and but then it actually dialed it back, not dialed it back, but it was like not as over the top as I thought it would be given this opener. So,
Yeah, like it could have gone wacky and zany from here, but
right.
then we like from that opening we have a bickering scene between Wayne and Dana where he's like giving her a really hard time for trying to leave town and leave her job.
Yeah,
So we get that there's tension there that she's running away from something. There's something about a sister, but a lot of this argument between them is coded, and it often feels that way when they're arguing because they
yeah,
are talking around a lot of stuff, like you said.
yeah,
But that scene ends with his phone blowing up, and then the both of them basically having to go to work because of, you know, there's a lot of phone conversations in these first couple episodes where people answer the phone and then go th say things like, "Who did what? Where?"
I
Like
know.
this happens
It's
a
a
fair
lot of
amount.
that.
It's
Yep.
kind of a lot of that because I guess, well, the dead have come back to life, and so maybe you would ask for someone to repeat themselves after getting that kind of phone call, but it does seem to keep going on, certainly in
Uh,
the second
and
episode.
And it's interesting because they intro the whole, event. We get to see these two characters, the main characters of the sheriff and Dana, their tension, and she's trying to get out from, you know, the rut that is, her life, like working under her father. They've been, like, and he's not happy about it because he loves his grandson, all this other normal like family drama. And we know that we find out later, and it's, obvious later that there's like underlying tension there. But they then do this thing with a time jump essentially, which is, they introduce this whole big incident, and then we get a little bit of exposition in the form of like, kind of weird TV clips and things like that, that just talk about, that the dead have come back to life, that they don't know what's going on with them. There's a quarantine. And then it like, so it fast forwards like a little bit.
35 days. But
Yeah.
that's yeah, that cemetery scene I thought was actually pretty, that like
Yeah.
really brings it back to earth too from the camp,
Yeah, definitely.
where you've got all these people. These are clearly, this is not a zombie show either, right? Like this is a show where people wake up from being dead and are just like, what's going on? At least in this initial moment, these initial moments. Like one of the guys who's walking around in the cemetery where she's parked or where she stopped her car has a hole in his head, like from a looks like a bullet wound or something. And
Yeah.
then so yeah, and then the little girl just saying like, "Where's my mommy?" And I'm not sure. They don't show how she solves that whole
Right.
problem, but I'm sure that that was a lot to deal with for her.
And isn't that the little girl that ends up later being in her son's class? I think
Yeah,
so.
it is.
So, yeah, so there's definitely like it's interesting how they're walking the line because there is a little bit of ridiculousness, a little bit of camp. Just even some of the caricatures of some of these like minor characters, and so that includes the coroner, and then later we see these other characters.
McCrae, the cop with
Yeah,
the rat tail.
yep. And Lester, who's like the rich like guy who's all into health and whatever, and so there's like a lot of that. It's kind of interesting how they're playing with that.
Hmm.
Um,
But then you have characters like Steve Ogg's character who gets introduced in episode 2, who is just supposed to be there to creep you out, and it's working pretty well.
he's got a culty vibe going on.
It's very, very creepy. And then, of course, you've got Arlene, who we meet at the end of episode 1, too, who is clearly also there to kind of ground things in horror again, even though a lot of the other, like you're saying, these other characters are there to kind of reduce the tension. So it is interesting. I think it's working. The balance that they're striking between lighthearted and horror vibes seems to be working for me
Yeah. Uh,
overall. But yeah, so then they jump 35 days into the future, they've got all those news clips and there's a quarantine or like a lockdown that's just been lifted,
mhm.
which is feels like very reminiscent. And she's just trying to get laid with a stranger in his car. And by the way that this interaction happens, that he's going to come back.
Of course.
I don't know that we knew necessarily who he was going to be, but he's really trying to tell her about it when they're in the car together.
Yeah, and I think part of it's because he realizes after he sees what car
This,
she's driving, because she's like, they're doing this in like the sheriff's like big
yeah,
like suburban or whatever it is, and he keeps it like, let me tell you about my occupation, and then like
yeah.
that whole scene was really well done and funny, and these two do a really good job um, of their interactions together. And obviously they get interrupted by another like, "Hey, you need to go and do this thing," and she's really annoyed and frustrated and kicks him out of her car. She's very like no nonsense and okay, now we're done with this. And she's like, it's cold out there, and she like throws him his coat. Um, and his scarf, and it was just like, That whole scene was played very well. I enjoyed that a lot. But and then she's going on to like kind of do the this seems to be consistent is that her father calls her to handle like annoying things, and in this case, it's like this horse is dead.
Yep.
And but it's not just that it's dead. It's like it's been it's kind of been brutalized and things like that. So there's also a lot of mysteries going on, and so at least at this point, for the most part, the revivers or the people who are back, it doesn't seem like they're causing any issues. Like the little voiceover that we hear is that they're allowed to go and kind of resume their lives, is what they say. And then we have this mystery, which, somebody killed his horse. There's like a bunch of random teeth lying around, which is terrifying. And
Lester's just out there. I guess he's the one who
yeah,
probably called it in.
he called it in, but man, is this super creepy. Like he sneaks up on her. But this is also what I'm saying. Like some of the minor characters have so much camp, like even the way he's dressed, even his interactions with her feel very campy. Like he feels like
He's a caricature.
caricature of somebody, not, and again, they set the table relatively quickly that he's like this guy who got rich. He's like a fitness guru. And, and then this is just juxtaposed over the horror of the fact that there's like this brutalized animal, and then she finds, I think, a fox as well in like this trap. So it's, interspersed with all this other stuff. It's like this weird, these livestock mysteries and things like that.
And it shows her character is like this inquisitive. She's an investigator and she's like kind of getting into that element of it. So that gives you some nice insight into her character too.
Yeah. Um, so and it's interesting how they filmed this whole thing. It's very dark, and they do mess around with that quite a bit to make it even more creepy. And like because I didn't totally know where the show was going, I thought that there would be more than this happening in the woods. And really, it's just Lester who like comes upon her. And to me, this raises like she doesn't seem all that shocked about the fact that he's out there. He's like, "Oh, I just pulled over because I wanted to get more steps." It
Hmm.
does feel weird that he's out there.
Oh,
So
everybody's a suspect, right?
yeah,
I mean, like literally, I don't think there's a single character who's been introduced who might not have
that's
sorry?
that's totally true. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
M's roommate later is very suspicious. Even the cops could all be, one more. All it takes is one line of dialogue, and they're all they're all ready to be the suspect or one of a conspiracy. From the horse scene in the woods, we get the scenes of Cooper going to school, and it turns out he's sitting next to the revived girl who we met. The kids are being unkind. They're whispering and making and joking and drawing pictures of her with words like zombie on it. And she's like, I don't think I look like that. And it's a heartbreaking little scene, but Cooper is being a sweetheart and is nice to her. So
yeah,
that's pleasant. And at the police station where Dana's at work, you got people freaking out about the undead, um, kind of all clamoring for attention. And as you can imagine, this is pretty believable stuff that
yeah,
that they're like, oh, you can't even tell who they are. They have said at least once that there's only 47
yeah.
official revived in Wausau, and it's only in this town.
Hmm.
This is not a nationwide thing.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
only
they've,
this town, and only the people who died within a specific time frame,
right.
like
Yeah.
2 week time frame, right?
Yeah. And that that gets more context in this episode. Yeah, because when Wayne does a house call at one point.
Mm.
Um when Dana goes to work, she goes into the sheriff's office, her dad's office, to try and find out more about. I don't even really clearly remember what she's looking for, but she knows there's a
Oh,
file in there she wants to get her
yeah,
hands
yeah.
on.
No, she's been talking about like she wants to get more involved. Like she keeps saying she wants a real case, and she's asking if he's released the list of the
Okay.
revivers, and so and her colleagues are like, no, he's keeping it on his desk and blah 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 blah. So she's got there on a mission because she wants to basically I think she's very curious about the revivers and how this is happening. It's a mystery. She seems to want to solve different things. But I think she also thinks, based on the fact that there's teeth and other weird stuff with the horse, that there's somebody connected with that case. So I think that's part of why she's trying to get it. So yeah, and then we get the hilarity ensues, which we knew was probably coming, but it's still pretty good because she gets they're all commenting on the new CDC guy and that he's like cute, and she's very much like both getting the file, but she also wants to see who he is, and it turns out obviously that it's her old friend from the Suburban. So
This is Ibrahim Ramin. She is delightfully awkward around him. And he is too, but he's holding it together a little more professionally than she
yeah,
is.
she is not.
She also then takes the opportunity of him being in the sheriff's office and kind of getting grilled already to make a farce she basically lines up with her dad to ask him questions while she sneakily gets the folder, and he kind of sees that and helps her, or they're helping each other, and her dad is immediately onto the weirdness between them. I just like the way that that was written. The fact that her dad is actually pretty insightful there.
And he knows almost exactly what it is. I mean, he does say, "What's going on with you two?" And he's so frustrated, but like kind of keeping it together. And then he unloads on her, which is like after Ibrahim leaves. And like, you know, it's again, I like these dynamics. I wasn't bothered by this because I feel like it's leading to something else. But again, it does seem sometimes a little one note between them. Um, almost sitcom-y, like he's gonna be the angry cop, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah,
He
so
certainly he certainly is the angry police chief who's always yelling.
yep. Um, and then we also have intros to M, and this is you know it's later we see um, a little bit of a time jump to see some of the things that's happening to her. But what I like about how they're presenting the show and how this stuff unravels is that there is a mystery surrounding her. I think we all kind of know what it might be, but it's not obvious to everybody else. So we have her in her apartment. Her roommates come back, and the apartment's like totally like trashed. There's
First we have her accosting this professor because she's like they've clearly had an affair that she is trying to find out more information about or have a meeting with this guy that she had a relationship with, and he is not psyched to be around her and says things like, "Yeah, you were being pretty weird there for a while."
yeah.
But
I thought
they make an appointment to meet later that day.
she's definitely got like some issues happening. And we kind of have some idea of what some of the things might be, but there's a few different mysteries happening, and this is one of them, or things that we're trying to learn, plus like the things that Dana is trying to learn, and the underlying big mystery about the revivers coming back, all of which are probably tied together. So I feel like they do a really nice job of showcasing each of these things. And it is a little bit formulaic, but I kind of like how they're playing it out. And the mystery about M is, there's implications that she was having just with the interaction with the professor, with the interactions with a roommate. There's implications that she was having a lot of trouble prior to the lockdown
And during the lockdown,
and
like,
during the lockdown.
because
Yeah.
it's interesting that as it becomes clear, she basically wasn't missing before lockdown. She was just really not around much during the lockdown. And people are making those comments to her. I don't think the professor does because he's not been trying to talk to her, but her roommate and anybody else she speaks to is like, "Where have you been the last few weeks?"
Yep.
But yeah,
Um,
I think it's pretty telegraphed, and I think we all know that she's almost certainly going to be a reviver. Um,
Right,
Just
but there,
based on that weird, like the fact that something weird is going on. She seems morose. It just
right.
feels like a good lineup.
Well, but I think that the question is, it's like we don't yet know, and there is a little bit of muddiness about when. Like, did it happen to her? Like, it
Yeah.
was had
And
to be.
I'll still say, as I'll say by the end of the second episode, you still don't really, and I think they're doing a
Yep,
good job of not telling you how she became a reviver, at least.
yep,
That's still a pretty good mystery that they are not being too forward about.
yep.
But I mean, this part you don't have to drag it out for too long. It is the button on the end of the episode,
Hmm.
like the fact that that's revealed, and it's still a good reveal, even though it's been kind of obvious that it's coming. It's more about who it's revealed in front of, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, and I do like how it all plays out, and I do like that M herself is trying to figure out the mystery, and there's things that she didn't even know or doesn't remember, and so she's just trying to piece these things together, but she's also trying to piece them together without like saying too much, um, to different specific people. So
Yeah, she's really keeping a lot of
yeah.
information locked away, or if she really doesn't remember it. It's kind of hard to tell.
Well, I think, well, especially she is very specifically withholding information from her roommate. Like her roommate definitely does not know until later, until this like close to
Second
the end, the
episode.
second episode that she is a reviver. But
Which her roommate didn't stay home. Like she was basically in their apartment or dorm room or whatever that is, alone for
yeah,
35 days because her
yeah,
roommate left.
yeah,
And that happens in episode two, that she's like, I'm gonna go home. And she does come home during this episode and is like, what? Have you just been here the whole time? It's
yeah.
terrible. She doesn't seem like a great person, and we'll
Nope.
find out more. We'll
Nope.
find out more about that. Dana has gone to Ibrahim to talk about the teeth she found because he also has teeth. There's some really funny stuff here about evidence,
Yep.
how about these railroad spikes that
Yep.
it's the second time she picks it up and she's got it like held up against her
Yep.
mouth
Yep.
was just
It was so good.
fantastic stuff. But like she's trying to put together this mystery about these teeth and this dead horse and this other dead animal and these traps. And now she has this list of names that she stole from her dad's office. And she's got like the one violent offender on the reviver list is this guy, Miles. And so she's kind of decided to go and find him.
It's also the interaction between her and Ibrahim about, he's insistent that they haven't found anything that would point to violence, and then she lays out a scenario where that's possible and why she thinks that. And his face, even while she's telling him that, is pretty hilarious. And so, she goes off to hunt, essentially, and this is based upon the traps that they found, which seem pretty ancient. Um, and she's pretty convinced that it's this sort of like misanthrope hunter dude, Miles, who lives in the woods. But as it turns out, even though he is like honestly, could he be any more camp, this guy? In terms of
Yeah, he's much too good-natured
yeah,
to be evil, that's for sure.
yeah. But
Yeah.
they also do things that like show you how the revivers kind of like heal so quickly. So they play a lot of upon that. And I thought the effects of that, I mean, it's not like too crazy, but the effects of that are pretty good.
No, it's looking good.
And so, while she's trying to like, bring him in, he gets his arm caught in one of the traps, and it's pretty gross, but it serves to illustrate the fact that he is a reviver. And but even while this is happening, even while she's kind of arresting him, he's not doing anything. He's not like really going after her. He just doesn't want to get arrested. So this
He
is
did try to kill her with an axe, right?
okay. So he did, but not like
But
but
not in a
not
bad way.
but not in the way that we saw the horse brutalized. And I think
Right.
that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And he keeps making, and honestly, some of the lines between the two of them, he keeps making like a lot of snide comments about why she wants a horse.
Like you're just really into
Like,
horses. I can help you get a horse.
and he's like, horse lovers are weird, and like he just keeps going on. And so
Uh,
the scenes between people are pretty well written, and I think
yeah.
that that's kind of fun. But but it's not exactly what she's after, even though it is certainly, he's not exactly a normal person. He definitely is a
No.
little bit of off the.
He's a bit off. He would be a great suspect if he didn't have janky teeth.
Yeah.
And so that's really the thing that I think she does still arrest him,
Yeah.
but
And
that's that.
he does give her a clue because he talks about that he saw like this red truck and that could be the people she's looking for. It had a tarp. And so it does set her on to the next trail.
Yeah.
Um, but in the interim, she's got more interactions with her dad and more interactions with donuts. And this is the first time we really see her interact with her sister, and this scene between them is pretty telling and also reveals like a lot. So I thought this was a pretty good one between these two as siblings, but also just we now hear definitely about a little bit of the underlying tension and some of the things that have impacted their family as a whole, both their dad and the two women. So, and we also get possibly a little hint about some of the troubles that M has been experiencing and as they relate to the mother's death. So I thought these were pretty well done scenes. And so I do like how I mean, I like how they're not totally revealing everything at once, though there is a little bit of frustration like if these two sisters haven't been interacting, like, and Dana is essentially a detective, I feel like she would have been a little bit more into her sister's business in this, but maybe there's just too much trauma going on from their mother's death. I don't know.
Yeah, there's clearly there's some pretty good chemistry and dynamics between them where she's basically found her sister sleeping on a bench in the middle of winter in Wisconsin. So she's concerned about how she just found her sister, but she's not trying. I think she's making an effort not to be like her dad and do the because her dad goes immediately to why did you do this? You're messing things up. That seems to be his initial response to a lot of stuff. And she's trying to be, it seems like she's trying to be more thoughtful and empathetic. But you could tell that M isn't sharing very much here. They do make this weird plan to like go on a trip together or something.
Yep.
And they start talking about that, but then they have to go to this farm to find this red truck. And meanwhile, Wayne, the sheriff, has gotten a phone call and he's clearly watching his grandson. He has 100 cops back at the station.
Yep.
For
Mhm.
what some reason, he's sent to do a wellness check on this one house, and he takes his grandson with him. And I do somewhat take umbrage with this scenario.
Yeah, but apparently this is a family trait. They take
Yeah.
people in inappropriate ways on
Yeah,
impulse.
then it is funny the way that after these decisions get made in episode two, each of Dana and Wayne are blaming the other for taking the other family member into
Yeah.
harm's way.
Um, and I think part of this though is that I think he knows the woman and they think he can be like a calm influence. This is the second time we're seeing Opal in this episode because the
That's
first
right.
time she was at the police station and she was really asking why her husband wasn't back because he unfortunately died one day before the window when everybody was returning. And as it turns out, she has brought his body back to the house and is waiting for him to revive. And it's actually really heartbreaking, and it's also really gross because he's
I
decomping,
mean,
and
it's 6 weeks later at this
it's
point,
pretty
right?
gross. Um, yeah, so that was
And Cooper's then hears a weird noise when
yeah.
he's sitting in the car and gets out of the car and leaves. So then Wayne is like, "Oh no, my grandson's missing." And there's a body in Opal's living room. Meanwhile, at the farm, the Dittmans are weirdly dressed exactly identical. Just another one of these weird elements that they were like, yeah, let's make them wearing, white shirts and matching overalls.
Yeah,
And and then they're trying to like distract Dana away from the barn where she can hear clattering and stuff, and she's seen the red truck that she's looking for.
Yep. She definitely knows she's found the whatever, or she's closer to the mystery for sure. Because there's like a bloody tarp there. And then they're like, there's just like animals moving around the barn. And, it is very weird and strange the way they are dressed alike. And when she goes in, it's not exactly what you're expecting, but really it's this. I mean, she's definitely altered. She's a reviver. This is the mother of one of the dressed alike people, the woman, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, which is messed up
Yeah.
based on how it goes.
Yeah, and she's just out of her mind, and so it was like, did she have dementia? Like it's hard to tell. And they are trying to make excuses for it and being like, oh, she just needs time to adjust and all this. And she's just violent and powerful, like super powerful. And so this whole thing goes very much sideways, and leads to like, we get to see this particular reviver in action, and she's like this tiny elderly woman at sight, but she is date and she's very upset, like her, it's kind of a gross, like this effect was so nasty, like when she like pulls out her own teeth and they
Yeah.
grow back, and so she's having some issues with that. And then this just really the choreography here, and it's really devastating because she kills her own daughter just by throwing her against the wall, and her head goes like over a spike, or like a spike goes through the head. And then of course M gets involved, and this is where, with judicious use of sides and farm equipment, it's revealed that M is a reviver. So, um, but I did think that this was such a good example because this little elderly reviver is taking, she's not stoppable. And Dana is really back on her heels, and not, she is not going to win this fight had M not intervened.
Yeah.
But M is definitely not as powerful as this woman. And even like up until the point where she gets like essentially impaled by whatever the farm implement was. With this wasn't the scythe, this was something else. I
I
don't
think it
know.
was the scythe.
The scythe. And Dana's just devastated. She know, I mean, that wound is a mortal wound, and so she thinks her sister's basically done for, and that's not what happened. So I think it's such a great like illustration about, hey, yes, I'm a reviver. And Dana's shock at that, but then also it's that mystery, but then also she's like, what, this woman, like, I don't know what made her this way. And they take her out, like they essentially cut off like
Top
half
of
her
her head.
head.
Yeah.
So,
And it looks like she goes down like a sack of potatoes.
yep,
She
she does.
looks like that's the way to kill revivers. So problem solved. Don't worry, everybody. M also looks to her sister after her wound heals and says, "Don't tell Dad," which is the name of the episode. So
Mhm.
there you have it. And then episode two begins. Pretty much that's the end of it. And then episode two begins. It's called Keeping Up Appearances. And we start with a flashback to presumably 35 days ago, give or take, when M wakes up um, kind of on a rock in the middle of a river, coughs up a wedding ring, and then finds her shoe and her jacket at this bridge. It's not very high bridge, but it is over the same river. And then kind of like walks home, has some uh, barely has any interactions with her roommate who is freaking out about zombies. Name drops 28 days later and 28
Yep.
weeks later.
Yep.
And then does a bunch of lines of oxycodone, but doesn't get high and is very upset by this. Her roommate is like, I'm out of here.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. She's aware that there's something wrong uh, with M, but also is not being very empathetic and is kind of like, I gotta get out of here because this is not a good scene.
Well, I mean, I think there's an implication that M's been struggling and she doesn't want to deal with it. And she also says, oh, I left you basically some drugs. So you kind of think, oh, maybe that's what's been going on. Like that's what they're trying to lead you to believe. But she's not exactly like, she's not caring enough to make sure she's okay. She's just like, I'm going to go and take care of me and go stay at my home with my family during the lockdown. And M kind of says, oh, yeah, I'll do the same thing. So I think there's this expectation that she might be leaving, but obviously she doesn't. So this actually kind of comes full circle. We know that when the roommate comes back, M has been there locked in with like all these food containers. She's just been just hanging out there. And we see like in that flashback, M's first day is like with her healing her hand and hitting the mirror and like trying to figure out what's happened to her because she really doesn't know. So that's kind of an interesting reveal. Um, and then she starts to go on her journey of like, hey, let me try to figure out this mystery. Um, and there's definitely, and just like a trigger warning, there is a lot of like implication with, interactions with the roommate, interactions with her sister, interactions with her old professor, that she has been like, that they like the initial reaction that almost everybody when they figure out she's a survivor or a reviver rather, is that she potentially committed suicide, so, because of whatever hard time she was going through. So that's the other part that she's constantly like, she doesn't, it's interesting because she doesn't think she did. And she says, I would never do that. But she also doesn't know what happened. Like everything's like a big blur for her, from what she's saying anyway.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing where that particular theory is being like, that's the first thing that everybody thinks, which, and she's very convinced that that's not it. So it's interesting to watch that play out in how people interact with her, but also in how she's trying to pull like all the puzzle pieces together. So I thought that was like an interesting addition and layering to an already kind of murky mystery.
Yeah. It's a good thread to the story is her trying to figure out her own stuff. She's definitely not interested in letting her sister or her dad help her.
Nope.
So it's fascinating to watch as this goes on. There's a lot of and then we jump into the future again where Dana and Dana is desperately trying to get M to agree to not reveal that she's a reviver and that I did everything that happened in this barn. It's probably not that hard to do, except that her clothes are kind of bloody. So they give her a
Hmm.
jacket. She's having some issues too as M because she does have a panic attack after the after when in the ambulance and is taken to the hospital, and that's where they have another family reunion, which is marked by a lot of arguing. The Wayne and Dana clearly share some attributes. They both yell at the nurse in exactly the same way at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, and Coop and the story about Cooper also comes out here, where he had walked into the woods, found Stephen Ogg,
Uh-huh.
who basically wasn't too creepy here because I mean he's with a kid. That I was
Yeah.
grateful for that, but he's like, I'm not going to tell you my name because I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. And he's like, well, why don't you head off down that way and you'll get found.
Well, like he said something kind of creepy. He was like, "Well, then aren't you like?" He's like, "But you're not supposed to be wandering around alone, are you?" Like there's like he plays this. He's walking right up to the line. He is a
Hmm.
little creepy, but then kind of switches it back and is like, "Get over there and be found." And then the sheriff finds him, but um, it's the police chief finds him, and then
And that weird noise that he was hearing does not get revealed.
no,
So
no. Uh,
but they are reunited in the hospital, and Ibrahim is there too, looking at Arlene's body. Arlene is the old lady reviver whose head was cut off or top of her head. He is talking to his nurse about like, oh, this is new information. We have to do some tests. They close the body into a room, and there's a guard on the room, but you do see her eyes open and her head start to kind of heal
mhm.
as soon as they close the door, because that's how that works.
Well, it's actually like a pretty, I thought this was like an effective special effect, and it's like the brain starts like basically coming back.
Yeah.
Which is like, ooh. I thought, and they have that little like gross like sound effect from it, which I thought was like kind of, and it's going to happen, and they don't need to show it. Like it's kind of like exactly what is going to happen. So what I like is that they don't tell or overshow here. They're just like, okay, this is everybody who watches these kinds of things knows, and they kind of set it up that way and then jump forward into the action after the incident's already occurred. So in some ways, I think little tiny dementia elderly zombie lady is a little bit like Jaws in that they never really like show her attack for a little bit, and then when they do show her attack, like she's the mystery monster for the horrors. She's then, we see her attack in these instances, but they don't need to show you all of it.
I don't
Um,
know that we know for sure she's behind the horse thing
well, we don't, but I think it's assumed.
because
But
her teeth
the
keep
teeth,
falling out.
yeah.
Could be. It could be. She messes up a lot of people in this hospital, though. I don't know that she kills all of them, but she certainly is throwing them around. There's some people with blood around them. She seems to have shoved the security guard's head through the wall, to some extent. So
Yeah.
she's doing some damage. Uh, Several more of these cops who we're starting to recognize are all there, and so they try to hunt her down. Um, Dana, there's a scene here that I felt like was just we've already had the argument scene, then we've got the Arlene reanimation scene, and Dana is talking to the reporter who was in the coroner's
Yeah.
office before. And I don't love this interaction. I don't feel like this is super realistic that Dana would talk to, even if she does know this reporter.
Yeah, and I don't think she would because she knows all the things that are happening and knows what's happening with the media and doesn't want to, I think, exacerbate that. And she's a like part of the. She's not gonna get into this stuff and reveal things to the press. I agree with you. I felt like this was a little forced and weird.
Yeah.
Um,
And we don't see exactly what she tells the reporter, but the we cut back to them and the reporter's saying, "I don't see how you feel like it's going to be okay for the police to cover all this up again." I'm like, "What have you told her that she's
yeah.
and yeah, it's frustrating because well, maybe we don't know Dana that well. There's only episode 2, so maybe she does have some sort of weird obsession with telling the media things, but there's nothing to talk about at this point. It's literally an ongoing investigation. You're like, it's pretty basic that we're not talking about stuff at this here. And, reporters should not be wandering around hospitals.
Nope. And and then she happens to be there when all the mayhem is happening, and um, another person gets is in the path of our incredibly strong reviver, and gets basically like they see her get thrown.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an
one,
interesting reaction here for Dana, right? That she's the hero. Well, I mean, and her response though here is she sees what's going on. She does not run to go help or
oh,
attack Arlene. She just starts walking away and tells the reporter to leave, but doesn't like grab her or anything. She's like, I gotta go find my son. She is piecing out here.
well, and then they do this thing here, and this is like what I kind of liked. So they show her reaction, and then other people are coming in, and their immediate thing is to check on the nurse and see if she's okay. Like they don't just leave this person like, and I thought that was a very human thing.
Yeah.
It also shows where Dana's priorities are versus, whatever's going on in this particular situation. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then, the rest of the sheriff, the chief and everybody are chasing after Arlene, and it's like a wild goose chase through the hospital. And when they do find her, it is like very scary. Like she's holding a baby in the nursery, and continues to sort of like basically lead them on this chase. And now the stakes are even higher because she's got a baby that she's absconding with.
Yeah.
And that I thought that was kind of interesting. And they're treading very delicately around her because it's like, what is she going to do to the baby? And so I thought that was kind of like an interesting ploy in that they are so engaged in this, and Dana is very much like not. So,
Yeah,
and
Dana's basically out of the scene after that.
right.
It's the Wayne and two of his deputies, McCrae and the other guy with the hat. And it's Arlene leads them, as you've said, on this like weird chase. She's very fast and stealthy. The baby's crying is the only thing that really helps them here. And when they find the baby, it's not her holding it, it's Steve Ogg as Blaine, who is being extremely culty in this scene too. He's just like, hey, you're gonna step on the snakes and scorpions.
Hmm.
And he's smiling, but he's saying all the weird wrong things. And he
Yeah,
does
this
have
dude is so culty and so creepy. So, but he plays it well. So, yeah. So I'm sure we're gonna find out a lot more about him. next time in the next episode. So,
Maybe. We'll find out what his role will be here. Sheriff is meeting with the mayor and Ibrahim, and they're talking about potentially locking up all the revivers as a result of these interactions. Because now we've got Arlene is just out there in the wind. She
yep.
is now maybe all revivers are unkillable, is where we kind of have landed here. The sheriff is understandably freaking out. The mayor doesn't really want to lock up the revivers, and Ibrahim is concerned but isn't really taking a side.
Yeah. No.
Um,
And he also is still trying to be like, we don't know much. This is like an overreaction. Um, but look, he's also just when we saw him start to, he was going to do the autopsy on Arlene and he was going to, like, he's not trying to necessarily like he wants to find out the real answers and he's just not willing to jump to complete and drastic conclusions based upon this one thing because compared to everything else he's seen, this is an aberration. He wants to know the reason why maybe this is an aberration. And so I thought that was kind of interesting, just the difference in the reaction, because he has been studying the science versus the chief's reaction. And granted, like we see his motivations. People say it, he's like, I got to keep these people safe. He says that like several times. He feels like a need for that. That's probably also definitely tied to something else that we shall see. But it's interesting to see these two interact and what their immediate instinct is to do. And then I do like how they're we will I'm sure see some kind of reveal when M is revealed to be a reviver because he keeps saying things about the revivers, about, that they died, they don't have a place here, that they're not, like, he's acting as if they're not human. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens once he realizes or finds out that M is.
yeah.
So that's going to be, I think, certainly part of it as we get into it. And in the meantime, M is off on her own murder mystery escapade.
Well, Dana has gone to her apartment slash dorm room slash wherever she lives. She kind of walks in looking for M, who had left the hospital, and finds a big bag of drugs, and then has a conversation with M, trying to find out how she died. Like this is her, immediate concern at this point. I'm not sure where Cooper is. We don't really see how that was resolved. Yeah, no idea. Maybe in the car downstairs. But they have a conversation um, about how M had gone to the bridge, which was on her mother's birthday, which was during the reanimation times. Um, and that she saw headlights, but she didn't. This is where she says, I wouldn't have killed myself.
Yep.
Uh, and then as it turns out, the roommate was there and overheard everything. So now the secret is getting out piece by piece.
Right, but Dana's also like, this is clear that Emmett had a drug issue, that they had been not close. They say this a few times that she'd struggled with like with and Dana's like, I thought you were clean and then, M shares like, oh, the fact that, now that she's a reviver, none of that stuff has any impact, but that in the days leading up to whatever happened, she had relapsed. And so that is the other thing. It's like the amount of oxycodone that's in the apartment is massive. So you know, you can understand why certain people are drawing conclusions. But, M is very adamant about the fact that she did not do this. But, again, maybe she's remembering more than she's sharing, but it's like maybe it's that she wants to think that she wouldn't do that. Maybe it's a simple overdose. We don't know. But there's something that we do find out in the next, well, not the next, kind of the next interactions and scenes that up the mystery factor, which I think is kind of cool. So yeah, so I think she wants to go and do a little sleuthing. Dana reluctantly lets her start to do that, but Dana
Well, I
also,
don't think Lena lets her do that. She
all
steals
right,
her car.
She steals her car, but like Dana's like their first immediate thing is that Dana's like, let me help you solve this because that's what I do. And she seems to comply with that. And then she runs off and steals her car.
Yeah.
And so this is a little bit of a wild goose, not like a wild goose chase, a goose chase, so to speak. But the bigger the whole thing is that it gets Dana, there's no other cars available, so she ends up because it's the only car sort of available is Ibrahim's car, and so that gets them back into the car together, which is kind of funny. But M is, you know, it shouldn't like it wasn't clear to me if she knew that the professor was going to be at that place, but it's a place that we've now seen a couple times, like that bar. That's isn't that the bar where Dana and Ibrahim have their interaction. Like it seems to be kind of a local watering hole, and the bartender knows them. So it's not like, I mean, she seems like she was just there because she wanted to go and get space and whatever, and by happenstance the professor came. I don't know. Like, did you think that she was following him there?
She was there when he got there with his wife, so I don't know. Yeah. And his wife appears to potentially be
Sick.
undergoing radiation treatment, or we don't know. But yeah, they also had a scene together where she was talking about keeping up appearances. So
Yeah.
she's a mystery. We also didn't mention in episode one when M got stood up by the professor. She called her dad, who was like, What? You can't go all dark on me like this," and etc. And somebody was watching her during that scene. I think it's the professor's wife. I think that there's more to that story.
Yeah.
Um, but so she is being really creepy and obvious in this restaurant bar, sitting at the bar, staring at the professor and his wife, and then corners him again, says, you don't answer any of my texts, and you stood me up when we were gonna meet. And he's like, I haven't gotten any texts from you since December 18th, and this is over. We're not getting back together. She's like, I don't want to get back together with you. I want to figure out what happened to me. So this is a nice moment, I think, for the audience because she's been keeping her cards so close that
Yep.
this is a nice moment for anybody like who's concerned about this Martha character and what her trajectory is, because now we know that she is looking for these answers too. Before it was like, is she just trying to get with this guy who's there with his sick wife? Like that seems weird and
Yeah.
creepy. But that's
Yeah.
not her motivation.
And this also reveals a lot. Like he says, "Oh, you were scaring me. I blocked all of your texts and things like that." And they were, you know, and then he realizes she's a reviver, and she basically then shows a little bit more, like a little bit more of what's been happening because she was like, "Well, the only thing I know is that I like coughed up this and it's yours." And she shows him like a wedding ring, and he's still wearing his wedding rings, which she shows her. And so then that ratchets up the mystery even more. And he also immediately assumes that maybe she took her own life. And so
It felt a little manipulative the way he said
it
that.
did. It did. Although he's not like, look, he's got a like he's not definitely not he is a flawed character, but he's not like evil. And you can see that in his scene in the scene because he could easily have just rejected her, not talked to her, and just gotten away because his wife's sitting right there out there and he's worried about that. But he does have some empathy here and sympathy here for her, and he says like, I'm so sorry. And clearly has some guilt about it, but he doesn't do what he could do, which is like like he didn't even have to listen to her here. He didn't even have to talk with her here. And so I do think that at least shows that he's not necessarily the big bad that she's been thinking he might be. And when it's revealed that it wasn't his wedding ring, now she's like, well, now where I do. I think that that actually sets her off a little bit more because she really now has no idea. And she thought she might have a little bit of a clue that he could help fill in what had happened. So I think that that's kind of interesting. And obviously, she is not okay based on what happens in the next scene, where she just kind of decides to, you know, start an altercation because somebody makes a comment about revivers. Um, and so, yeah, so she's just kind of on her own little journey here. And what did you think about the fight that she has in the bar after this immediate thing?
She's not keeping a very low profile, that's
Oh,
for sure.
right.
And she wants like she's just self-destructive, and that that behavior has already been kind of established with the drug use and the cutting herself. Well, that was to figure out more about her reviver powers. Here, it just feels like this is something that she wants to do because it'll feel good on some level. We also have learned about her brittle bones condition, and she breaks a bone very early on in the fight, but then it doubles down.
Yeah. And we also find out that their mother died. Their mother died in an accident where Em was driving. So this is all kind of packaged up into a, hey, she's got a lot going on, and
Yeah.
there's a lot to unpack here. And she gets like, she's gets beaten up pretty badly here, but then gets ushered out of the bar by this other character. And it turns out that he's a reviver. Nobody in the bar sees what happened to her, so at least that wasn't revealed. And then she's like, "Yeah, it'd be a good idea. Gonna hang out with this guy who apparently cuts off parts of himself and and lets them grow back, based on the flyer, anyway." What did you think about that? Did you like? It seems like she's a little bit rash and impulsive, so this doesn't surprise me. And she's found somebody that has similar things happening, so maybe she's finding some camaraderie there and
Yeah.
understanding there. But that I thought that that was kind of interesting. And and Dana and Ibrahim are like still like hot on her trail, but just missed her, right?
Yeah, and this is a lovely, well, I really like the scene where Dana gets into her car. She'd gotten a call from Nella, the woman whose bar it is, and they get to the bar as fast as they can, and then she just kind of gets in her car and leaves. She
Yeah.
she doesn't go into the bar and look for her sister,
Yeah.
which is I thought was interesting. Maybe Nella had told her that she left, so but she gets into her car, finds the chocolate bar she left her, and the note, which is like, don't try to find me. I'm doing my own thing. And you know, Melanie Scrofano just delivers a lot of these lines this way, but it's really endearing. She's just like, well, I'm still mad. But you can tell that she's actually really happy about the chocolate bar.
Yeah, and that was like a cute moment because her sister did leave. It was cute. I do also like the interaction between her and Ibrahim
Oh,
about,
yeah, she's like, we could do this again. He's like,
and
what, just
he's
drive
like,
around in my car?
and
Yeah,
she's so awkward about it. It's
they're
really,
just there. She is doing a lot of good awkward work.
Mhm. Yeah. So, um, so yeah, lots of stuff in these episodes. And you know. I'm really enjoying the show so far, and it's different than what I thought it would be. I thought there would be a little bit more of the horror element, although I guess we did get a little preview of that it wasn't like purely like a zombie thing. But I really like the cast, and I like what's happening so far. I like the acting, I like the plot line. So I'm looking forward to watching the rest of this.
Yeah. The final scene of the episode is also Dana goes back to M's apartment and interviews the roommate who's doing bong hits, and is kind of disarmed as a villain in that scene. You, you know, you do still get kind of negative vibes from her, but she is expressing remorse for taking M somewhere the night
Yeah,
supposedly that she died. She says, "I know who killed her."
yeah,
This will probably almost certainly be a red herring, but it's still fun to see where this is going to take us.
yep.
Yeah.
So it was a nice little way to end that episode, but it definitely left me wanting more, and I did not click play, even though I could have, Stuart.
Well,
Didn't.
your strength is unmatched.
Nah, not true, just sometimes. So anyway, if any of our wonderful listeners have watched this, I'd love to hear what you think. You can send us an email at reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts. I'm curious to hear if other people are enjoying this as much as we are.
Yeah. Give us a holler, and thank you for listening.
Yep. Until next time. Bye bye.
Toodaloo.